From the hand of Matt Groening, Futurama has become a cult series, and many remember it with nostalgia. Much of Futurama's humor centers around science and the way that American media of the mid-20th century predicted that it would be applied to daily life in years to come. As usual when explaining an iceberg, we start at the surface, where we find the most known facts of the series, and go down to the most disturbing things it has to offer. Adventure Time is an iconic Cartoon Network series. Finn and Jake are very popular characters in recent times. During the episode Leela and the Jeans Talk, we can see a cameo of these two characters. Bender finds the pair chained up to the wall. Bender leans next to Jake. Jake whispers the phrase, "What time is it?" a reference to Adventure Time's oft-repeated catchphrase from earlier episodes, where Jake asked what time it was, and Finn responded excited that it was Adventure Time. But when Jake asks Bender, he says it's time for you to shut up.
What time is it? Time for you to shut up!
Space Pilot 3000 is the first episode of Futurama. Throughout this episode, the writers hid several secrets that would be explained during the course of the series. In the episode, Fry accidentally freezes after falling from a chair. For a brief moment, we can see the shadow of Nibbler, a character that would have much more importance in later episodes, being the cause of Fry ending up in the future. However, throughout the series, this scene would be repeated several times, but in each one, it is different, being difficult to know which is the correct one, because in one we see the shadow of Fry and Nibbler, or in another there is no shadow at all. The Futurama Theorem is a real-life mathematical theorem invented by Ken Keeler, a writer of the series, purely for use in the episode The Prisoner of Benda. It is the first known theorem to be created for the sole purpose of entertainment in a TV show, and according to Keeler, was included to popularize math among young people. The theorem proves that, regardless of how many mind switches between two bodies have been made, they can still all be restored to their original bodies using only two extra people, provided these two people have not had any mind switches prior. Futurama, The Simpsons, and Disenchantment are all series by Matt Groening, and as expected, they share many references and are also part of the same universe. In the 10th episode of Disenchantment, the demon Lucy looks into a back-in-time globe, and we briefly catch a glimpse of Futurama's Professor Farnsworth, Fry, and Bender sitting in the forwards time machine from the episode The Late Philip J. Fry, in which the trio travel through the destruction of the universe and the entire history of creation over and over. This means that at some point, they existed in the same time and place as the medieval events of Disenchantment. The Simpsons featured a crossover with Futurama in the season 26, titled Simpsorama. In this episode, the Planet Express crew comes back in time to our present to kill Homer Simpson, believing it to be the only way to prevent the creation of creatures descended from a sandwich that Bart placed in a time capsule behind Springfield Elementary. Simpsorama canonically places the show in Futurama's past, meaning that the three Groening shows exist within the same timeline. We mentioned before how one of the writers of Futurama created a theorem just for one episode. However, he is not the only writer with mathematical knowledge, as it seems that it was a requirement to be a writer for the series. Futurama writing staff held 3 PhDs, 7 master's degrees, and cumulatively had more than 50 years at Harvard University. Futurama was created in 1999. The series continually presents us with futuristic inventions and all kinds of products that today seem impossible to make. Futurama is set in the year 3000, so there is still time left, but there are still some things that have been predicted correctly so far. The smartwatch was predicted through Leela and her wrist-mounted computer. The name of this item is called the wrist-low jackometer, and is clear to viewers in hindsight that this is an early idea of a smartwatch, a device that can be found on the everyday wrists of people around us today. Leela uses it to communicate, check the time, play games, and is a remote for the Planet Express ship, as well as an environmental scanner. Virtual reality was also predicted within the series. When the crew visits a theme park on the moon, it shows a person playing a real game of skee-ball, then someone playing virtual skee-ball, then finally shows Amy playing virtual skee-ball.
Wow! I could swear I was really playing virtual skee-ball.
The headset looks very similar to a popular VR gaming headset from nowadays. The most shock prediction yet is the voluntary euthanasia, when Fry and Bender meet each other for the first time in a mass-produced death box machine called a suicide booth. The idea of death and suicide becoming a capitalized industry is a bit harrowing. Voluntary euthanasia is a much safer and more humane act that is quickly becoming more legal in countries around the world. Countries such as Canada, the Netherlands, Australia, Colombia, and New Zealand have all made voluntary euthanasia legal in the past few years. The name Futurama comes from a pavilion at the 1939 New York World's Fair. Designed by Norman Bell Geddes, the Futurama Pavilion depicted how he imagined the world would look in 1959. Futurama was an exhibit and ride, which presented a possible model of the world 20 years into the future 1959 to 1960. The installation was sponsored by the General Motors Corporation and was characterized by automated highways and vast suburbs. Many other titles were considered for the series, including Aloha, Mars, and Doomsville, which Groening notes were resoundingly rejected by everyone concerned with it. TV Party is an EP by the hardcore punk band Black Flag. It was released in July 1982 by SST Records. The song describes a group of friends who have nothing better to do than watch TV and drink beer. Futurama would make a small cover of this song, performed by the characters of the series. The original song mentions shows of the time, so in the Futurama version they took the opportunity to change the names of those shows for fictional programs within the Futurama universe.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't wanna talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson and Blazeball.
Futurama!
Futurama had 140 episodes, with 30 minutes each, spread over 7 seasons during its almost 10 years being aired. Thanks to Hulu, a new season will be produced, having a total of 20 episodes, with 30 minutes duration each, directed by Matt Groening and David Cohen, who also worked in The Simpsons. The show has the potential to continue with more episodes, but that all depends on the viewing rate and the public's response. At the moment, no concrete details are known about what direction the show will take, but what we know is that all the original cast will be back for Season 8. The alien languages in Futurama are a set of background jokes, appearing in the background throughout the length of the show. The intention of these alien languages was for its viewers to discover how they work and then decipher them. Technically, they are not languages, but a ciphered form of English, or more precisely, Latin characters, since not all of their translations are in English. The first alien language is a simple substitution cipher. This means that each Latin letter is simply replaced with a new symbol. The script can be translated into English simply by learning each symbol or by looking it up in a table. The second alien language is more complicated, a variation of the classic auto key cipher. Each symbol has a numerical value. To decode a message, the first symbol's value is translated directly into a character, for example 0 equals A, 1 equals B, and so on. For the remaining letters, you subtract the previous symbol's numerical value. If the result is less than 0, you add 26. Then that number is converted into a character as before. In the closing credits of the episode where no fan has gone before, we are shown a collection of stills that appeared in the show to the sound of a variant of the Star Trek theme. The last still is this one of Kif Kroker, which breaks the trend. Kif appear in the episode, but nowhere in the episode did he appear like that. This could be a very strange image to put out of nowhere, but in reality is another reference to Star Trek. In Star Trek, there is a character named Baylock who can be found in the credits of the original Star Trek episodes. He appears despite not being on the episode. The Hypnotoad is one of Futurama's most recognizable symbols of psychedelia, making its first appearance in the show's third season in an episode called The Day the Earth Stood Stupid. Even though Hypnotoad's first appearance was in 2001, the Toad's image has transcended the show's own fandom to become synonymous with a greater, ever-growing internet culture. The Hypnotoad became a fan-favorite element of Futurama, appearing in various episodes despite being an accident during production. The jarring noise hadn't been intended to be a permanent part of the character, but it soon became one of the most memorable aspects of Hypnotoad. The sound that it makes is a recording of a turbine engine played backwards.
Most popular show already in progress. Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
In every episode of Futurama, it is possible to find small Easter eggs and curiosities. After all, the writers of the series like to create this kind of things to cause intrigue to the fans. This picture of Fry and Nibbler can be seen in a couple of episodes, and many fans found it an interesting picture. Something interesting is that many don't remember seeing the picture, despite being in plain sight. Futurama shows continuity in its callbacks and overarching plot lines. Fans get recurring jokes along with these narratives. A lot of fans still remembered some of these running gags even today. For example, one of Bender's best running gags comes when he goes through depressed bouts of sobriety. Since he is fueled by alcohol, abstinence gives him the opposite effect of sobriety. He is showcased with rust around his mouth. Celebrities and notable people are shown as severed heads existing in glass jars, bringing to mind the aesthetic of old sci-fi films and TV shows. One of the most noticeable running jokes in Futurama is the professor's catchphrase, "Good news, everyone." This phrase is often followed by ambivalent or negative news.
Good news, everyone! Those asinine morons who canceled us were themselves fired for incompetence. Hooray!
Fan-O-Rama is an independent live-action movie which, as you can imagine, was produced by Futurama fans. The movie has a running time of 32 minutes. The story begins with Fry and Bender doing what they do best, hanging out sitting on the couch, drinking beer and watching TV. When they run out of beer, they see a beer commercial promoting a contest where they can win a lifetime supply of free beer. To win, they must write an amazing song. This film attempts to interpret Matt Groening's universe in real life, and as expected, many things will not look good in this type of medium, such as a cyclops. The what-if machine was an invention created by Professor Farnsworth. The device resembled a television set and could predict the outcome of any what-if phrase question, though it can only do this 3 times a year. The machine is made of gold, and the method of activating it is never the same. It is unknown when the professor invented it, but its first appearance was in the episode Anthology of Interest 1. For example, Bender asks, "What if I was 500 feet tall?" Then we can see if Bender was 500 feet tall, he would try to kill all humans. He would again befriend Fry, but would meet his end after fighting an enlarged Dr. Zwabberg, who pushes him onto the Empire State Building, which would kill him. In another what if, we can see that if the universe worked more like video games, the planet Nintendo 64 would declare war on Earth and would invade Earth only so they could do their laundry. Then it would fall to Fry, as an expert on video games, to fight off the invaders from space. Fry would be unable to destroy all of the Nintendians, and Earthicans would be forced to let the invaders throw their laundry in with their own. What's interesting is that the movie Pixels has a very similar plot. The episode of Futurama aired in 2000, and Pixels came out in 2015, so it is not impossible that Futurama influenced this movie. Another interesting theory about the What If machine is that according to many fans, all the non-canonical episodes of Futurama are parallel universes created by this What If machine. In the episode Fry and the Slurm Factory, we can see the Slurm Queen, who is seen when Fry and the rest of the Planet Express crew won a trip to see the Slurm Factory. During the tour, they meet Slurm's Mackenzie, find out the factory is a fake and that the proper production of Slurm happens in secret tunnels beneath the fake factory. She is the creature that makes Slurm, a secretion from her anus, which is later canned and sold to the public. When the Planet Express crew are disgusted by the secret and only ingredient, she says that it's nothing new.
Milk comes from a cow's behind. And have you ever used toothpaste?
Whose behind does that come from?
You don't want to know.
Many came to the conclusion that she was referring to elephants, although it's not confirmed. In the episode Put You Head on My Shoulders, Bender has a nightmare in which he says he saw a bunch of ones and zeros, and even saw a 2. Interestingly, there is a 2 in the scene, although many do not see it the first time. This is a joke, because all machines use binary code, because it is the most efficient way of storing data that a digital system can process, as with modern processors. It is much easier to build a digital CPU than an analog one, especially since it is easier to predict its operation. The 2 in Bender's dream could be seen as an error in its programming, because it would not be possible to process that number, it would have to be forcibly changed. In the episode Roswell that ends well, Fry causes trouble for himself and the rest of the crew when he accidentally causes them all to be transported back in time to Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. Enos Fry was a United States Army private as of 1947. He was originally Philip J. Fry's grandfather until Fry's interference led to his death. As a consequence of this, Fry impregnated his grandmother, thereby becoming his own grandfather, and not only did Fry become his own grandfather, he made his father his own grandfather as well, resulting in an infinite loop. Nearly every intro of Futurama features a large television screen playing cartoons ranging from 30s era black and white to 70s era futurism, all of which the Planet Express ship will immediately crash into. The reason as to why this old cartoons were shown only for a couple of seconds is unknown, but most of them were documented, except for one. In the episode Decision 3012, we can see a strange cartoon being shown. For many years, no one knew where this came from, and it was considered lost media. But as it turns out, the cartoon wasn't really lost, because many fans found out that it was a part of an old series called Family Album.
Mike inherits my transmitter. Let me show you by comparison.
Futurama was so popular during its broadcasting era that in 2003 it would have an official video game quite similar to that of The Simpsons. The game is quite loved by the Futurama community. However, this game would go down in posterity for having one of the most mysterious Easter eggs in history, as it was not discovered until 2019, that is, 16 years after the release of the game. The reason why it was not easy to find it is because the requirements to get it right are very specific. Jurassic Park is one of the most remembered episodes by anyone who has seen Futurama, being even the best episode of the series, with a score of 9.5 on IMDb. In the episode, Fry discovers the intact fossilized remains of his pet dog from his old life. After remembering the times he spent with his friend, Fry decides to do what he can to see him again. The episode is filled with emotion, but according to the DVD commentary, the original idea for the episode was to have Fry's mother fossilized instead of Seymour, but this idea was scrapped after it was thought to be too upsetting to the audience. In the episode, the late Philip J. Fry, the professor, Bender, and Fry watch the ending of the whole universe, but just a little later, another Big Bang happens, almost exactly as the first one. Meaning the whole cycle of life in Futurama is a loop that never ends. What is most interesting is that this theory could also apply to our own world, since many scientists think that there's enough evidence to believe that the universe can reset. If this theory is true, it would mean that our whole existence has no importance, because everything will repeat itself again without us being able to be aware of it, being in a cycle from which we cannot escape.